following presentation is an Delmarva Studios production.
Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of the Flat Earth Files. I'm your host, as always, George. Hope you're having a good week as it starts to wind down. Here we are, Thursday, January 12th, 2023. Almost halfway done this month, which is a good thing. I'm not a fan of January, for sure. Short days, cold days. We've had a blustery couple of days here. Haven't had any snow yet this year. That's normally, by now, we've at least had one dusting. Haven't seen any snow. Wanted to come on today. A lot of feedback from last night's program, our interview with Sean. And the podcast is starting to make the rounds. People asking some interesting questions. So I had a little bit of time this afternoon. Sit down, talk about a couple of the emails I got. Then we're also going to discuss two really interesting articles I found. The first one is entitled, The Earth is Flat, Now What? Kind of, that thought that when you finally accept the fact that you may have been lied to, where do you go from now? Interesting article. And then from the Flat Earth Science in the Bible, top 10 undeniable proofs the Earth is flat. A couple we have spoken about before, but a couple of these we haven't really touched on. So with that being said, let's kick off today's program. Our first email comes from the great state of Florida. And they say, I've recently, for the past 3 years, become a believer in the flat earth theory, listened to most of our episodes, and wanted to see if they could come on the program and have a discussion about the flat earth theory and how they have censored it on the web and YouTube and from people seeking about flat earth. Now, they do hide it in the algorithms on YouTube, but the thing I find really interesting, even when I go to super alternate or alternative search engines like Yandex, you put in the earth is flat, and the first 3 or 4 links you'll think that it is pro-flat earth, but then you'll see the actual website is like science.com, and most of them are, they're trying to do it in a facetious way, these silly flat earthers. And you really have to dig deep, even on these alternative search engines. Obviously, Google, you're going to have to dig back 4 or 5 pages before you even start to find anything remotely close to what you're looking for. So I'm completely on board with what this person says. Also, how flat earth relates with religion, because I talk to Christians and believers in God, but when I bring up flat earth, I get dismissed. Yeah, and we spoke about that last evening, of course. That is a very toxic issue in the truth community. On one hand, they say question everything, but if you bring that up, you're belittled. When I first brought it up on my other podcast, we get emails all the time. I love your show, but when you bring up flat earth, it discredits you. But I always say I thought we were supposed to question everything. We should not question the fact that we're hurtling through an endless space at 66,000 miles an hour, and we're spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. And these numbers they give us, we're not supposed to question that whatsoever. A government that lies about everything. And the same people, like I said last night, this is the one that's a head scratcher for me, my friends. Most truthers believe. One gentleman I know on a personal level, and he's a big name truther. And one of his court cases is in the Supreme Court right now because of an event that took place on December 14th, 2012. And he wrote a book about it. And like Alex Jones lawsuit with some folks from the family, he wrote a book about that we never went to the moon. I mean, he wrote a book about we never went to the moon. But if you bring up flat earth theory around this guy, he explodes. He's got a radio program 3 days a week. And if you bring that up, you're just belittled. And there's a caller, I think from California, that calls him every week and tries to... We are lied to a lot of things. Even, here's a bone for you. In case you've never had this rabbit hole, if you've never explored this one before. Nukes. Right? Nukes aren't really what they say they are. Nukes have kept people in fear for about 80 years now. A lot of interesting stories about how Nagasaki and Hiroshima were firebombs, weren't really these atom bombs per se. And I believe, kind of like this person, I don't like to use people's names without their consent, but all of these things, heliocentrism, well, our Earth can be taken out at any second by an asteroid. Well, wait a second. Hold on a second. If you're a Bible believer, if an asteroid comes and takes out the Earth, well, then what about tribulation and what about God coming back and everything? There's a head scratcher right there. Here's the thing. Man wants you to believe that man can choose when this Earth ends at any time. That is not the case. Now, man can do a heck of a lot of damage. Shout out to the military-industrial complex, right? I'm talking about the people at the top who just are warmongers for profit. But again, if we can be taken out at any second, what about all the biblical things that talk about revelations in the end times? Don't read anything about an asteroid hitting the Earth. So again, I think the only person who can control events at that scale is the Creator. And that's George's opinion, just mine. Again, how flat Earth relates with religion, because I talk to Christians and believers in God, but when I bring up flat Earth, I get dismissed. Yep. So I would love to dive in and see what you think about that and other questions I have about flat Earth. And I reached back out to them and let them know that I am completely booked actually through this week and next week. But hopefully the week of the 23rd, we can get together on a time and have a conversation, and we'll release it to you just like we did with Sean last night. So thank you, listener, and you have an email in your inbox there. And then Michael. I just said I wouldn't use first names, but anyway. Let's see. I already sent his email. He said, last night I mentioned that you clicked on a link that made you think. Do you recall what the link was? So what happened again on my other podcast 3 years ago, I got an email from someone who's very well known in the flat earth world, David Weiss. From his, I don't know if it was from him or his people, but it said, "Hey, do you want to come on?" I didn't know who David Weiss was. Actually, you know what? I brought the email up. Basically, it said, "I hope this message finds you." It's from 3 years ago. I recently came across your podcast and would like to ask you if you're open and available to having Mr. David Weiss on as a guest to interview and discuss the topic of flat Earth. And here's the I saved this email. And originally, like I said, I originally deleted the moment I saw the subject. Guest available for interview, David Weiss, flat earth expert. And I said, delete. And listen, like everyone else, I don't agree with every last thing Dave says, but he is the one who woke me up to it. And this is what I replied to him. Because it was 2 weeks. I said, David, 2 weeks ago, I read this email. I laughed, I deleted it, and I moved on. Funny thing was, for some reason, I kept coming back to it, just because I've always been a curious person. So against my better judgment, I started watching your video. Then I brought up your app, and it has consumed me for the last 10 days. And I think it's really safe to say for me, as a truther and in my awakening, the second biggest one where I really just stopped everything and started researching was 9/11. But when I clicked on the first link, he had 4 or 5 links, and I clicked to one that went to his YouTube channel, and I clinked, Colonel Clinked, Hogan's Hero, shout out. This interview was from 5 years ago, and it's just the one I managed to click on, and I watched it several times, and it was a podcast with David Weiss and Crow 777. And it went about 2 hours. And I mean, they talked about it. They talked about flat Earth, but they also talked about the dinosaur hoax, nukes, the International Space Station, NASA. And then I started going down the NASA rabbit hole, and there's so many videos out there that have the just they're acting like there's gravity, and then they're dropping stuff, and you can see harnesses around their waist when they're doing flips, and it was just 10 straight days of, wow, really, what kind of Pandora's box have I opened now? And anyway, we ended up linking up, and man, it was, again, 10 days of just nothing but rabbit holes. And by the time I actually got him on the program and interviewed him, I was basically on Team Flat Earth at the time. So, sometimes the more interesting videos can be when you have somebody comes in, a full-blown glober, and then, one of these guys who is a Flat Earth expert, certainly not myself, guys, whether it be a Dubé or, Dave or any of these other people. It's interesting to watch them go full circle. There's actually an interview he does too with an Atlanta news broadcast, like a local news on the television, and it's pretty interesting. At the end of the 30 minutes, these people are basically they like to say they're not flat earthers, but you can see in their face that their lives have been changed. And I think we all have had that moment in our journey to the truth, whether it be 9/11, Pearl Harbor, the Gulf of Tonkin incident, Naira al-Sabah, and how we spent $12 million to coach up this young lady who had not been in Kuwait in several years. And she sat in front of a congressional hearing and said that Iraqi soldiers were taking these newborn infants out of their incubators and throwing them on the ground to die. And it turned out that she was the Kuwaiti ambassador's daughter and hadn't been in Kuwait for years. So, all these lies add up, and at some point you either trust somebody or you do not trust somebody. If you have a friend or someone who is very close to you in your life, a spouse, they cheat on you, they lie to you one times. Many of us will find it in our heart to forgive and to, try to work things out. But it's kind of like the, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. And with this government and all their, it's like they're on the 1,000th, shame on you, shame on me, right? So I will put the link. It's a 2-hour, it's on YouTube, but it's an audio podcast. I'll put the link in the show description. It runs hour 52. And if you like it, hey, maybe you'll go on to listen to Dave and Crow 777. If I'm not, I never want to hide information from people. Oh, well, they might listen to that podcast. That's not how I roll. This is about getting people to think critically. There's nothing more important than that right now in this world. So I will put that in the show description, and I hope you guys enjoy it. It's great information in there. And again, it will make you think. Lastly is, here we go. One of our friends from Idaho, and 2 emails. The first one: too many in the truth community are seemingly open to every conspiracy except Flat Earth. Flat Earth is the one conspiracy ridiculed by all. The question is, why is that? My answer is that because this is that conspiracy which, if true, makes man's denial of Creator and our accountability to Him impossible. All other conspiracies can be rationalized as the evil devices of tyrannical governments and power-hungry men. But Flat Earth demands a Creator, which for too many, even here in the truth community, is unthinkable. But for that reason, it is the most fundamental and important conspiracy of all. And he's right, and very much like the individual from Florida, very much the same line of thinking. He sent another email this morning. In my previous email, I suggested the only way to rationalize other conspiracies was to attribute them to tyrannical governments. But I forgot to mention the alien explanation. It's acceptable to attribute things to aliens, but a creator, God, is off limits. As a Bible believer, this connects all the dots. And that's exactly what we were saying last night, Stephen, is it's funny how some things you get looked at like you're nuts, and then things which you would think should be rational, you get laughed at. So there we go. Thank you for the emails. Keep them coming. theflatearthfiles@gmail.com. Again, it is theflatearthfiles@gmail.com. By the way, one note, I did get a email from Sean, who joined us last night. He said he wanted to let us know that the name of the guy he was talking about was Matt Powerland, not Josh Powers. And so there you go. Let's kind of move along and get to the two things I wanted to talk about today. This is from aplaintruth.info, and the earth is flat, now what? And we've been taught that the height of stupidity and naivety was when our ignorant ancestors believed the earth to be flat, and that if anyone somehow still thinks the earth to be a movable center of the universe, well, they must be the most primitive kind of ignoramus. Yet to our eyes, the earth is flat and motionless. The sun and moon are the same size, and all the celestial bodies revolve around us. This stable geocentric universe, proven true by experience and experiments, adequately explaining all earthly and celestial phenomena, reigned undisputed for thousands of years. So then he moves on to the Flammarion engraving, which I'll put a link for you. Since we're not doing video here, I'll put a link to the Flammarion engraving, which once you guys see it, you may not know it by name, but you'll certainly recognize the engraving. It was done back in 1888, and it beautifully illustrates medieval cosmology, featuring a flat earth bounded by a solid opaque sky or firmament. The Greek astronomers represented the ceiling as formed of a solid crystal substance. And prior to Copernicus, a large number of astronomers thought it was as solid as plate glass. Now, the engraving, which represents the scientific or the mystical quests for greater knowledge, depicts a man clothed in a long robe, carrying a staff, kneeling down to poke his head through a gap in the star-studded firmament, thereby discovering the celestial workings of the greater reality beyond. And Flammarion's accompanying caption reads, "A missionary of the Middle Ages tells that he has found the point where the sky and the earth touch." And then, as we mentioned a few podcasts ago, in 1543, it all changed. Pope Paul III teamed up with Copernicus, the Church of England, and the ever-present Jesuits to convince unsuspecting Europeans that despite the Earth's obvious flatness, it would henceforth be referred to as a sphere, and the sun would be the new center of the universe. This was also coincidentally the time of the great rewriting of European history. And again, this is after the 30-Year War and the Protestants, the separation back then, very, very big time in the history of the church. And you see people start to take over and they rewrite theory. And Morris Klein said that the heliocentric theory, by putting the sun at the center of the universe, made man appear to be just one of a possible host of wanderers drifting through a cold sky. And it seemed less likely that he was born to live gloriously and to attain paradise upon his death. Less likely, too, was it that he was the object of God's ministrations. And, that right there lends credence to what two of our emailers were talking about earlier. Since then, for almost 500 years, the masses have been thoroughly deceived by a cosmic fairy tale of astronomical proportions. For 20 generations, people believed that the earth was round because there was a globe in every classroom. And now there's a globe on every TV show, every movie. It's always in your face. We've been taught a falsehood so gigantic and diabolical that it's blinded us from our own experience and common sense, from seeing our world as it really is, and that is flat. With pseudoscience books and programs, mass media, public education, universities, and government propaganda, the world has been systematically brainwashed, slowly indoctrinated over centuries into the unquestioning belief of the greatest lie of all time. A multi-generational conspiracy has succeeded in the minds of the masses to pick up the fixed earth, shape it into a ball, spin it in circles, and throw it into orbit around the sun. The greatest cover-up of all time. NASA, you could say Freemasons' biggest secret, is that we are not living on a plane. We are living on a plane, not a planet. And isn't it interesting how one letter can change? Are we living on a plane? You add a T, it's a planet. The Earth is flat. It is the stationary center of the universe, of the world, right? But the problem is, to many people, it sounds a little too uncomfortably biblical for them. And we've mentioned this before, but would it surprise you to learn that there is not one single genuine photograph of the Earth taken from space? That is 100% factual. Search online for pictures of our planet, or anything else for that matter, from space, and all you will find is artificial composition shots and CGI, composite shots. Even though the high-definition cameras are ubiquitous now, and NASA has a multi-billion-dollar budget. Last I heard, it was $70 million a day, and there's other contracts, requests that they get approved for as well. Still, even with ISS and everything else, no one is taking photographs of the whole Earth because they can't get far enough away. Even though they claim to have, these things on Mars, the rover and everything else, it's all lies. It is all lies. Here's what we do know. Our everyday experience tells us that the Earth is flat and stationary. NASA is a government agency, and that should be the end-all, be-all. End of statement. We know the government is corrupt, it lies, and it only works to benefit the elite. The Apollo missions did not go to the moon, period. There are no authentic photographs taken for space, 100% factual. Live video from the ISS has shown to be fake. The sun and the moon appear to be exactly the same size. We can see distant objects that should be below the horizon. There is a conspiracy to conceal our true identity, and much of it has to do with trying to hide God. And since our school days, we've been taught some simple truths like 1 + 1 = 2. And the world we live on is a globe. We all know this is true, don't we? But how do we really know? How can we convince ourselves without using the word NASA? Is it possible, horror of horrors, that we've been lied to for hundreds of years? That we are all actually living in the Truman Show on a static, flat plane inside an enclosed structure thousands of miles wide with a roof and a boundary wall? The great Nikola Tesla said Earth is a realm, not a planet. It is not an object, therefore it has no edge. The Earth would be more easily defined as a system environment. Earth is also a machine. It is a Tesla coil. The sun and the moon are powered wirelessly with an electromagnetic field, the ether. This field also suspends the celestial spheres with electromagnetic levitation. Electromagnetic levitation disproves gravity because the only force you need to counter is the electromagnetic force, not gravity. The stars are attached to the firmament. Reason number 3,000, they discredited that guy. Great article. Now from Flat Earth Science and the Bible, their top 10 undeniable proofs that the earth is flat. And this comes to us from 6 years ago. Oh, no, actually 2016. I forgot it's 2023. It's crazy how fast time goes. Number 1, the horizon always appears completely flat, 360 degrees to the observer, regardless of how high you go up. Any curvature that you think you see is from a curved airplane window or GoPro cameras that have fisheye lenses, which, by the way, NASA loves to use. The reality is that the horizon never curves because we're on an endless plane. On a globe with 25,000 miles in circumference, you would see a noticeable disappearance of objects the further the way they go, as we talked about the Earth's curvature, right? Number 2, excuse me. Which way are we going? Yeah, that was number 1. Number 2, the horizon always rises to meet your eye level, no matter how high in altitude you go. Even at 20 miles up, the horizon rises to meet the observer. This is only physically possible if the Earth is a huge, endless flat plane. Again, if the Earth were a globe, no matter how large, as you ascended, the horizon would stay fixed and the observer camera would have to tilt downward, looking down further and further to see it. Horizon is always at eye level. Google the simple horizon test and you'll see what I'm talking about. Number 3, this is a big one to many people. The natural physics of water is to find and maintain its level. Again, if Earth were a giant spinning sphere that was tilted and hurtling through space, rather than being truly flat, consistent level surfaces would not exist here. There would be a massive bulge of water in the oceans because of the curvature of the Earth. And if the Earth was curved and spinning, the oceans of water would be flowing down to level and covering land. Some rivers would be impossibly flowing uphill, which does the Amazon, and that is an argument against the globe, right? What about was it the Nile that flows up? And how does that make sense on a globe? It's in South America. That makes no sense at all. Rivers in the southern hemisphere that go either hemisphere, right? But the Earth is in fact an extended flat plane, and this fundamental physical property of fluids finding and remaining level is consistent with experience and common sense. Water remains flat because the Earth is flat. Number 4, if the Earth were a ball, 25,000 miles in circumference, and NASA and modern astronomy claim, spherical trigonometry dictates the surface of all standing water must curve downward and easily measured 8 inches per mile multiplied by the square of the distance. So this means along a 6-mile channel of standing water, the Earth would dip 6 feet on either end from the central peak. Every time such experiments have been conducted, standing water has proven to be perfectly level. And we've mentioned this before, the Bedford level experiment, proof that there is no curvature. Number 5, the sun is much closer than we've been told. It's in our atmosphere, right? You can clearly tell that it's not 93 million miles away. Many times you can see the sun's rays shooting out of a cloud, forming a triangle. And if you follow the rays to their source, it will always lead to a place above the clouds. Again, if the sun were truly millions of miles away, wouldn't all the rays come in at a straight angle? Also, the sun can be seen above the clouds in some balloon photos, creating a hot spot on the clouds below. In the other photos, you can clearly see the clouds dispersing direct underneath the close, small sun. And that talks about crepuscular's rays prove flat Earth. And I'll put all these links in the show description. So when you're done the broadcast, make sure you take time and look at the resource we put in there for you. Number 6, if we were living on a spinning globe, airplanes would constantly have to dip their noses down every few minutes to compensate for the curvature of the Earth. And with the circumference, again, of 25,000 miles, the Earth would be constantly curving at the speed of an airplane. In reality, we know they don't do this. They learn to fly based on a level, flat plane. Also, if the Earth was spinning and the airplane is going west, wouldn't they get to their destination much faster since the Earth is spinning in the opposite direction? If the atmosphere is spinning with the Earth, then airplanes flying west to east would have to fly faster than the Earth's spin to reach its destination. Another really, that is interesting. In reality, the Earth is flat and airplanes just fly level and reach their destination easily because the Earth is not moving. Number 7, we've already talked about Airy's failure. That proved that the stars move relative to a stationary Earth and not the other way around. We've spoke at that. And we also spoke about number 8, the Michelson, Morley, and Sagnac experiments that attempted to measure the change in the speed of light due to the Earth's assumed motion through space. And after measuring in every possible different direction in many locations, they failed to detect any significant change whatsoever, once again proving the stationary geocentric model, destroying the heliocentric lie. Number 9, if gravity is really a force so strong to hold the world's oceans, buildings, people, and atmosphere stuck to the surface of a spinning ball, then it is impossible for gravity to also simultaneously be weak enough to allow little birds, bugs, to take off and travel freely, unabated in any direction. And if gravity is strong and strong enough to curve the massive expansive of oceans around a globular Earth, would it be impossible for fish and other creatures to swim through such a forcefully held water? And then there's a link to Gravity is a Hoax. We'll leave that link for you. The truth is everything on our flat Earth is naturally arranged by density and mass and buoyancy, right? Number 10, ship captains in navigating great distances at sea never need to factor the supposed curvature of the Earth into their calculations. Both plain sailing and great circle sailing, the most popular navigation methods used, use plane, not spherical trigonometry, making all mathematical calculations on the assumption that the Earth is perfectly flat. If the Earth were in fact a sphere, such an errant assumption would lead to the constant glaring inaccuracies. Plain sailing has worked perfectly fine in both theory and practice for thousands of years, and plain trigonometry has time again proven more accurate than spherical trigonometry in determining distances across the oceans. If the Earth were truly a globe, then every line of latitude south of the equator would have to measure a gradually smaller and smaller circumference the farther south traveled. If, however, the Earth is an extended plane, then every line of latitude south of the equator should measure a gradually larger and larger circumference the further south traveled. And the fact that many captains navigating south of the equator, assuming the globular theory, have found themselves drastically out of reckoning, more so than the farther south traveled. And that testifies to the fact that once again, the Earth is not a ball. The South Pole does not exist. It is an ice wall, right? It doesn't exist as a continent like on the bottom of a globe. You can't fly over it. It's an ice wall. And I'll put a link to the Atlantean conspiracy there as well. And I'll put a lot of links. Make sure you take the time now as we wrap up this broadcast to check out all the links I put in the show description. That should keep you busy for several hours for sure. So there you go. I had a little free time this afternoon. I thought I would come on and say hello, share the emails with you. Thank you for your continued support of this broadcast, and kind of talk about these two links that I found in my studies today. So there you go. Again, thanks to everyone. Appreciate the emails, and please do keep those emails coming. Again, it is theflatearthfiles@gmail.com. theflatearthfiles@gmail.com. Everyone have a great weekend. Be safe out there. Keep questioning everything. For everyone here, I'm George. Thanks again. Have a great weekend. Keep your head on a swivel. And until next time, my friends, we will see
You're listening to the Fact Hunter Radio Network.
Just the facts, ma'am.
Hey, hon, we really need new phones.
T-Mobile will cover the cost of 4 amazing new iPhone 15s, and each line is only $25 a month.
New iPhone 15s? Best new year ever.
Get 4 iPhone 15s on us with eligible trade-in when you switch to T-Mobile.
Minimum of 4 lines for $25 per line per month with autopay discount using debit or bank account. $5 more per line without autopay, plus taxes and fees. Phone fee at 24 monthly bill credits for well-qualified customers. Contact us before canceling account to continue bill credits or credit stop and balance on required finance agreement due. $35 per line connection charge applies. See T-Mobile.com.
Hey, hon, we really need new phones.
T-Mobile will cover the cost of 4 amazing new iPhone 15s, and each line is only $25 a month.
New iPhone 15s? Best new year ever.
Get 4 iPhone 15s on us with eligible trade-in when you switch to T-Mobile.
Minimum of 4 lines for $25 per line per month with autopay discount using debit or bank account. $5 more per line without autopay, plus taxes and fees. Phone fee at 24 monthly bill credits for well-qualified customers. Contact us before canceling account to continue bill credits or credit stop and balance on required finance agreement due. $35 per line connection charge applies. See T-Mobile.com.